most of you know me, so my name's Lee Fitzpatrick, run a marketing agency in Edinburgh called Outlaw Social, and at the core of what we do is content, which is the basis of this session. We'll be covering basically the fundamentals of good copywriting on different mediums, so social media posts, writing emails, writing website copy, and pretty much everything in between. And Lauren, who's joining me on the call, is Outlaw's content strategist, and she'll be taking the lead on some slides, which will go through loads of interesting stuff, and I'll pitch in as well. Yeah, but let's get started. Lauren, over to you.
Cool. Hi everyone. I'm just going to share my screen, so let's go for that. You might see yourself in a minute. There we go. Can everyone see the good writing versus bad writing screen?
Yes.
Yes. Cool. So I'm just going to play this. So really we're just going to go through, oh, now you'll see the wrong screen. So I think we'll just keep it like that because I have 2 monitors set up. The joys of technology. We're just going to go through some examples of good writing versus bad writing. It's very relaxed. I'm going to go through some tips and advice on how to write good copy and why copywriting is so important to marketing. Really, it's something that people try to cut costs on a wee bit by doing it themselves, and sometimes that shows, sometimes it doesn't work out. So hopefully by the end of this you'll see the benefits of writing good copy. So first to go over is just content that's easy to read and clear is always going to win over like jargon copy. So smarter content doesn't mean more content. Always throughout this whole thing, quality over quantity will always win the race. People tend to have a primary language set of about 15,000 terms. And what that means really is things like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but when we think of words that are maybe a bit more some stuff that you would see in like the Telegraph is the way that I would always describe it. So sagacious, for example, means wise, so just write wise instead of sagacious. Laborious means boring, so write boring instead of laborious. Just things like that. And just keep it, it's not about dumbing down language, it's about being more accessible and readable to everyone. Using these words as well, we live in a world of scrollers, and that translates through website copy, email copy, social media copy. We're all scrolling through it and just looking out for the wee bits that just catch our attention, and using these more sort of primary terms allow us to scan, read and consume things at a quicker pace, which ultimately we are a society of impatient people and we want information quickly. So keeping your language just concise, clear and distinct is always like a big thing to keep in mind when you're writing copy. But just to delve into that a bit more, don't force your readers to work your way, work theirs. So this is an ongoing battle I have with designers as a writer. Designers love like all cap titles because it looks nice in designs. But as human beings, and the way that we read, sentence case, so number 3 there, is what we naturally will read clearer, and we're able to scan read it a lot better. We read in a way that kind of jumps, almost like if you think of like a camel's humps. We don't read every single letter, we just kind of scan over, and this kind of this shape, I guess, where it just kind of starts with a capital and goes all lowercase. We did digest that better, as opposed to this feels a bit more confusing to us, like we almost need to hang a bit longer on each word to take it in. So yes, for design, but sometimes title case, and this is title case by the way, where each word has a capital letter, which is sometimes more confusing because we're forced to jump more. So title case in all caps do look nice in some instances, but if you can, always try and force yourself and force your copywriter to write in sentence case. It just makes things clearer. So that's a good little tip to keep. So regressive reading, that's one that I could talk about quite a lot when I'm looking at designs and stuff, but not everyone knows what it means. So regressive reading really means if something's too convoluted or long and boring and uses a lot of jargon, you'll find yourself doing it all the time. You start reading it and then you'll get to a point in the sentence or in the paragraph and you're like, what was that about there? And you have to go way back to the start again. That's regressive reading. It's not good for users because eventually they'll maybe do that once, and then once they get to that point again, they'll just abandon the piece of content. So if emails are just a bit convoluted and go on a bit, or if your social media posts just aren't getting to the point, then you'll probably, and the same goes obviously for any form of copy. Copy is copy and words are words. So when I'm talking about copywriting, I mean on all these kind of channels, you're just going to lose the interest of the reader. So try and avoid jargon and use clear language. And keep in mind what is user jargon might be different to brand jargon as well. So your brand might have different acronyms it uses. And in marketing, we're all criminal for using more jargon than we probably need to, and more acronyms. And I do it myself. Like if I'm presenting stuff to clients, and I'm always saying stuff like CTA and KPI. Just yesterday, someone said to me, "What does CTA mean?" And it's obviously call to action. So just keeping things like that in mind, that not everybody knows. Like just because it's something we live with every day, and it's almost like our second language, not everyone knows these things. So just keep it simple, keep it clear. Always, whenever you're using an acronym, always explain what it means, whether it's in brackets or just say what it means without using the acronym. And a good way to think about stuff like that is, if you've been on previous webinars that we've done in this series, then you've probably already seen this because I sent it in one of the follow-up emails. But it works so well for every piece of content. So especially in emails, put the information that the person wants to know at the top. Sometimes people get too lost in trying to explain the reason for something before actually getting to the point of what the reason is. So things like saying, like, "I hope you've had a nice day" is fine, but obviously some people, like, say you were requesting something, some people go way too into like a whole paragraph of why they're asking for this before they actually ask for the thing. And a lot of the time people just switch off from that in emails. Same with website copy, same with, again, social media. So get to the point of what you're trying to say, your main call to action. So if you're looking for someone to send over an asset, ask for that first, or put it in like your subject title, like in your subject header in an email. So you need to know information, the stuff that you want all your users to know. Get to the point, your main call to action, always at the top. Then as we sort of float down the content, your middle section is your additional information. So stuff that helps the user understand what your request is or what your call to action is, but maybe less important if they've already got clarity on that at the top. And then your footer stuff and the stuff at the bottom of your page is your nice to have, but not essential. So it doesn't really matter if they've read that or not in terms of what your call to action is, but it's maybe just nice stuff to call out. So always assume that as people are reading your content, and again, that's social media, newsletters, emails, your content on your website, always assume that the reader can stop reading at any time. So you really want to get that point across quite far up the page.
Lauren?
Yeah?
I just run a poll just now.
Yeah, sorry.
I just want to get a quick sense of on what you just said there about what channels people are putting content on. So I'll just launch this poll just now, and if everyone could fill it out, that would be great. I think that's everyone. So I'll just share those results. So 40% social media, 40% email, someone's doing newsletters, and then yeah, majority of people are doing a combination of them all, which is good to hear.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool. I think we have another poll as well, which we will get onto because it'd be quite nice to find out who's actually writing for themselves, but we'll, I'm just need to clear that poll down. Cool. So next part is finding out, well, what does make good writing? How do I know what to put out there, and how do I know what to keep just to myself in my Google Drive somewhere. So a really, really popular quote in the world of writing is, good communicators make themselves look smart, great communicators make their audiences feel smart. So that goes back again to some writers, if you think of the sort of higher end, if that is such a thing now, of journalism, they're very technical terms, very jargon led, and these journalists look smart. But great communicators are the ones that make their audiences feel smart, and that goes back to simplifying language again. It's about using language that we speak, basically. Like, think about how you would have a conversation with someone and try to be that way, because that's going to help you be more authentic, more natural, and just make you a bit more human. So this is quite a nice little grid to use. So if it makes you feel dumb and it's easy to get through, then it's probably quite patronising. So we'd maybe use that in like kids' books and in sort of kid content. So obviously this is like patronising for adults as opposed to kids. And if it makes you feel dumb and it's difficult to get through, then it's not great writing at all, because it's just making your audience feel stupid and it's confusing them, probably going back to regressive reading again. If it's easy to get through and it makes you feel smart, then this is the best writing. This is the sweet spot. And if it's difficult to get through but still makes you feel smart, then it's rewarding but it's hard to popularise. So you're probably targeting a certain niche there, and you're not making yourself accessible for everyone. So I'll send that in the follow-up email, because it's just quite good when you're writing content just to think, right, where would this sit? But also keep in mind that user research is great. So what might make sense to you might not make sense to the next person. So we're all at home just now, so pass it around people in the family or friends, like just to get an idea of how they're reading it as well. And you'll soon see like a difference, a change to your writing once you're getting people to actually proofread it for you. The words we put on screen and paper are one of the most important ways we have of showing people what we stand for. So this is why copywriting is just such a vital part of all marketing. It's almost like this is how we tell our story. This is how we showcase ourselves. It's really how people form their first judgment of who we are as a brand or who we are as people. And every word adds up to people's perception of who we are. So you'll see that I struggle all the time in emails and on Slack and stuff, because I keep things quite to the point sometimes, and sometimes it can come across quite blunt. And it's so hard, because sometimes you just want to put a little smiley face and emoji or whatever just to show that you're friendlier than you sound. But then sometimes the smiley face comes across like you're being a bit passive aggressive as well. So it's a difficult one. It's always hard to like show your tone. But of course, like with like website copy and stuff, as long as you're telling that story properly, you're being authentic and organic with what you're saying, conversational and just being human, then it will come across that way. Sometimes you can just overthink it too much to the point that it just becomes convoluted. And good writing is empathetic. That's such a big one, like thinking carefully about the people you're writing to. In my last role, we all did like personality tests to understand each other better, because people would take offence to the way that some people spoke to them, but it was just because your personality clashes. Because I can be quite blunt in my emails, and then some people want to write a whole story, they might feel offence to someone like me who's quite direct. So just understanding who you're actually speaking to, who your audience is. If you have a luxury brand, then you maybe want to put a bit more luxury feel to it. If your brand is like, I've actually got examples of their stuff. Like, I think the kings and queens of copywriting is innocent drinks, like the innocent smoothies, and they obviously have this fun, kind of excitable kind of tone. So there's different. This is where your tone of voice comes in, and something that you should establish really before any content goes out. And it shouldn't feel like a tick box exercise. Again, just going back to feeling natural, feeling authentic, and being true. A big one for me is so many brands try to pass off humour, and humour does work in copywriting when it works. Again, going back to innocent drinks, but when it doesn't, it's a bit cringe, and it feels unnatural. And I'm sure you can probably think of some brands that do that, almost like they're trying to copycat these sort of brewdogs of the world, I guess, like that actually do it well.
Lauren, can I ask a question? We've got a question from Vladimir.
Yeah.
It says, would you recommend we make the writing accessible to more people, so a broader audience, or target our niche?
Yes and no. So you should always assume that anyone could land on your page. So accessible, yes, like that goes back to keep using primary language, keeping things organic and keeping things simplified. But yeah, of course, like once you know your user journey and who you're actually trying to speak to, you might manipulate that a little bit for that audience. And again, that goes back to what I was saying. If you've got a luxury brand, if you have like a sort of high budget client, they might respond differently to, they might not respond so well to like quirky humor writing. They maybe are looking for something a bit more luxurious that's telling a compelling story. But you'll understand that yourself. Like Innocent Smoothies, the way that they write their copy on their social media wouldn't work on, I don't know, like Mercedes-Benz, for example. It's a different kind of tone. But the fundamental rules still stay the same, if that makes sense. You'd still be using that primary language set and you'd still just be simplifying your content. Nobody in any niche really wants to be reading tons and tons of content before they get to the point of what the content's about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So here's an idea of like some like words that you can change to like simplify. So assistants say help. Like this is some people. This is, I guess this is almost like people that are just trying to be too clever sometimes, and sometimes it's just better just to say what you're trying to say. So enable, like I see that quite a lot, and I think I'm probably criminal of that myself. Like enable our user, so just let our user. Just be things like that. Ensure, just make sure. These are like, this is an example of primary set versus like more complicated terminology. And also just trying to, it's almost like you're avoiding what you're trying to say, and sometimes it's just better to just say what you're trying to say. However, and but, resolve, fix, you get the idea. Like you just, I'll keep that slide up just so you can go through them for a couple of seconds. And then I've put in there like the whole like but thing, like not starting a sentence with but, like no grammar rulebook in the world will tell you that you cannot start a sentence with but. It's okay to do that. And so, and you need to think like the way that we speak, we do put but at the beginning of sentences in our conversation as well and in our language. So it's okay to use it. Just keep in mind to use it in the right way, because it does put a stop on where people read. So, but I just thought I'd put that in there. And same goes for and as well. I think and works okay at the beginning of sentences if it's done in the right way. Use verbs and fewer nouns. I probably should explain that a bit better. So a verb is like a doing word. So it normally end in ing, or like explore, I guess. Like, so you see that a lot on websites, like explore this page, discover this page is another verb. And then like, but this is a difficult one. So use verbs, all your call to actions should be verb driven. Like that's quite a big rule. And there's been loads and loads of tests to show that call to actions do have more success if they're verb driven. So what I mean by that is if you've put a bit of copy and then at the bottom of it you have a call to action that's leading you through to another page, and say it's to look at candles. I'm saying that because that's the first thing I saw. So it would be like view our candles or view scented candles. Always starting that sentence with a verb as opposed to just candles and expect people to click on that button. The reverse is true when we think about our navigation. So some people try to be too clever with their navigation to the point that it doesn't make sense. So they'll have things like explore, and then under that would be subpages that are things like things to do and a map of where we are. But the opposite is true in navigation, because the way that we talk and the way that we read, explore doesn't really make sense. What does that say to me? What am I going to actually click on here? Just say things to do. So just think about how the reader's reading it, I guess. Doing words are good for when you want a reader to actually do something, But if it is just a case of trying to label things to do, then just tell them that that's what they're going to be clicking on and that's what they're going to find out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We naturally use more verbs and nouns when we talk, so try to do it when you write as well and see what makes your writer shorter too, which is an example there. So we made a decision to, we decided to, we conducted an analysis of, we analysed, we provided help to customers, we help customers. It just makes it shorter, it gets to the point, and it says what you've done as opposed to just making these big long sentences, added words, purely because you're trying to avoid using verbs. Moving on, so put yourself in your reader's shoes when you're writing. What are they going to be more interested in? I think I kind of went through that on the triangle, where it seems to be in our human nature that we're always tempted to explain why we've done something before we actually say what the thing is, especially if it's bad news or an uncomfortable messaging, which as marketers, we do have to deal with that sometimes. Just like in this follow-up email, I'll need to explain why we never recorded the last webinar. So we're often like, it's just I think it's like almost like a British thing as well. Like it's our nature to kind of tiptoe around things before we get to the point of the bad news. But just tell the reader, like they want to know, like just tell them what they need to know, and then you can't go wrong. Like just be honest and be compassionate with what you're saying. What are they more interested in? Like the process we took to decide something or how it actually affects them. And that's so big just now with the whole coronavirus thing. I had flights cancelled last week and I got a letter from the CEO of the company that I booked my flights through. And his letter just went on and on and on. And it was the last paragraph where I found out what action I now need to take to get reimbursed for those flights. And it really was just, it went on. And it's things like that. It's like, I need to know now, before you tell me about what your team's trying to do, just tell me what I need to do to make this right. So just thinking about things like that. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't explain our reasons, of course not. It just means that we need to explain what the impact is first. How does this impact your user and what action do they need to take, if any? And then when you go into your reasoning, subheadings are your best friend, because then it just helps people get to the part of, and that includes emails as well. You can use subheadings in emails. It just helps people get to the part of what they're looking for and the information that's relevant to them. And then let positivity ring through in your writing, like the odd exclamation mark or confetti emoji is great. I try and not use exclamation marks, but I'm sure we all do it at times. But if we use them in every other sentence, it starts to feel a bit forced and insincere. And the same goes for superlative words like great, lovely, and awesome. Because if everything's awesome, then there really is anything awesome. Awesome is a word like, I've worked for an American company, and that was just something that they said constantly. And I find myself saying it now, and I hate myself for it. And they start to lose their power. And one of the words I hate more than anything is delighted, and it's used too often in marketing. And when I used to write press releases for a company before, it was a word that I sort of banned from using in them. It just feels insincere nowadays because it's used so overused, and it's not actually in our natural vocabulary. How often when somebody says, how are you doing today in the street, do you say, oh, I'm delighted? You know, it's not a natural word that we use. So just again, it's just going back to like, how would you say it? How, like, are you actually delighted? Like, if you actually think of the true meaning of these words, like only use them when it's truly how you're feeling, because then they carry more weight. So that was just me. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Lauren, I'll just jump into this other, I'll let you take a breather. I'm just going to pull up this other poll. Cool. And we'll get, just bear with me. Just to see how many pieces of content that people are writing each week. Oh, we've got some zeros.
Everyone can probably, can you see this coming up on my screen?
one more person, and then 2 seconds. So end polling and share results. So 33% of people are not writing any content. Then we've got 2 pieces. So we've got someone's writing 3, and someone is writing 6+ pieces of content a week. Wow.
Busy.
Aye, very busy. Thanks for that.
Cool. These things are always quite good to see, interesting to see how different people work.
Yeah, definitely. I might just share this the next one, if that's all right, just quickly.
Yeah,
just following on from that, I'm interested to see who's writing their own copy, or if people are outsourcing it to a professional copywriting company or copywriter. So 67% of people are writing their own copy. One person's outsourcing it to a professional. Interesting. Good.
Cool. Was the lack of apostrophe and don't, was that a play on because they don't produce any?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that it was intentional.
Cool. So always be clear about who's doing what. But again, this is so big at the moment with the whole coronavirus thing. There's a funny thing that happens to writing when we're given bad news because we don't want it to come from us. We slip in what's called a passive voice, which basically like nobody takes responsibility for something. So passive would be a decision has been made to close your account. Like, well, who made that decision? Whereas being a bit more active is we've decided to close your account. I've noticed this quite a lot with the coronavirus. Like, a government decision has meant we've had to close. Like, we've decided to close because we're trying to follow government guidance. Is just a bit more active than being. It's almost like passing blame. And yes, there is no blame with this, but just try and be a bit more personable, I guess, about what's happening. Passive, this bug will be fixed in the next update. You'll probably see that quite a lot with like software and stuff. And we'll fix this. Just adding in those, like, it's just slight changes, but it just makes such a difference to, like, when the user's reading it, it just feels more sincere and it feels like it's someone is holding themselves responsible, and it's almost like they're going to deliver on a promise as opposed to it just being a general, this bug will be fixed or a decision has been made. Well, who's made that decision? And if you need help with that, monkeys can help. So this is quite a good trick. So by adding by monkeys to the end of a phrase, you think might be a passive. If it still makes sense, then it is passive. It's as easy as that. So a decision has been made to close your account by monkeys. This bug will be fixed in the next update by monkeys. But that won't work if you make it active because we've decided to close your account by monkeys. That doesn't make sense. So if none of it makes sense, then you're using active phrases, and that's a good sign. But if you can add by monkeys to the end, then you should probably think about changing them. So it's just a bit of fun, that one, but it's quite a good trick to use as well.
I love that. It's great.
Try to keep your sentences to under 20 words. I think I'm quite good at doing that now, but I'm sure there's probably somewhere there's a few comma splices in there. But studies have showed time and time again that 11-word sentences are considered easy to read, and those of 20-word words or more obviously are fairly difficult. And it also shows that sentence length is 14 words, people understand over 90% of it, but at 43 words, which is a crazy number of words to put in a sentence, people understand 10% of it. And this goes back to regressive reading again. I might try and put this in the follow-up email actually. There's a thing about writing that it almost is like, it's like a poetry, if you like, without getting so deep and meaningful, but there's a flow to it. So some sentences short, some sentences a bit longer. There's like a pattern, albeit not that was the wrong word to use, not like a strict pattern, but like there's a flow, like mixing short with long just helps us read a bit more easily. Whereas if a paragraph is just all short, then obviously it looks a bit weird, or all long, then it forces us to go back to the start, and that's never good for the user. So the power of 3 can come in here, and I wrote an article about the power of 3 in writing, and even writers were amazed at like how they had never really noticed that, because we just do it naturally. We see it absolutely everywhere. And it could be that there's 3 bullet points in a list, 3 sentences in a paragraph, 3 paragraphs under a header. It's not always strict, but you'll see it all the time. For example, going back to innocent again, the example that I'll always use because I think they're just great at copywriting. So you can see that first one, think portable, think fruit bowl, think portable fruit bowl. So that's 3 sentences. Same goes for nature made Brussels sprouts. End of sentence. We all make mistakes, but at least she made strawberries too. That's 3 sentences. Tesco, every little helps. 3, just do it. 3 blind mice. 3, everything's 3.
I don't think anyone's going to be able to unsee this now. It's going to be like, yeah, done.
I'm trying to think of other examples because there's just so many of them.
If anyone's got any examples, put them in the comments.
I'm loving it. McDonald's, you know, everything uses this 3. And it goes back again to human nature. And the way our brains work is that the human brain typically can remember up to about 3 things in this context. And then it kind of forgets. So we'll all remember the first man on the moon. Some of us remember the second. A few of us know the third, but not many of us know the 4th person on the moon. So just like things like that, we remember to about 3 things and then we kind of forget, we don't care. And that's why these brands clearly use like this psychology to come up with these slogans. Like we just think, oh great, slogan, every little helps, that's pretty cool. But the work that would have went into getting that to where it is, same with Just Do It, and all these things is quite incredible that it would have been a big task for that marketing team to come up with these slogans. So that kind of goes into the 3 again. So like even that first one, I don't even want to read it out. Like it just bores me to look at it. But it doesn't really matter what it says. But it's just more to show like how you can break up this kind of information that just is in a block paragraph that just kind of puts me off reading it. I've already done regressive reading on it. Like I don't really care what it says, although it's something that probably is quite important to know, especially if you're a parent or whatever. But then after, like just splitting it into these 3 sections, using bullet points just to break things up a wee bit, just instantly makes you a bit more, like I'm just drawn to that one instantly as soon as that slide comes up. And it's saying the same thing, but it's just in a more simplified, easier to read way. So think about bullet points as well when you're thinking about your content. That obviously doesn't mean have a full page full of bullet points. I try and maximise them out at about 5, unless there is a purpose if you're doing like an actual list of stuff. But 3 is great if you can get away with that.
Lauren, can we just, I've got a question from Joanne. So she's asked, is there a good indicator to produce X amount of copy per week? For clarity, I meant in terms of aiming for doing copy 3 times per week or once a week consistently. So that kind of whole quality versus quantity. You want to just answer that? Yeah,
sure. So it's always quality versus quantity. If you have a viable purpose and a user need to put content out, then 100% do it if it's well written and if it's filling a user need. But you notice on some brand blogs, it really is just, you can clearly see that they're putting content out for the sake of putting content out. And really you'll probably lose engagement more than gain it, like if you're doing that. The other thing to think about is blogs serve a purpose as much as it is just to like engage with your audience. Same with social posts as well. Making them more interactive and a bit more conversational will always win over just putting out like nonsense, really. And same with social posts as well. It's okay to come out, like it doesn't always need to be about, there should always be a brand angle, but it doesn't always need to be about your brand, if that makes sense. Like again, I'll go back to Innocent Smoothie. If you go to their Twitter, they do some quite funny posts, and it's not always trying to sell the drink, but everyone knows them now for their great coffee, so the brand is just in our heads constantly now. The way to think about content is that when you're prior to writing a piece of content, think, is this an evergreen piece of content? And what that means is, in a year's time, will this still make sense? And if the answer is no, unless you're like a news blog, then question like, does it need to go out just now? Like, or can I put a more evergreen angle on it? Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely. And I think
yeah.
what I'd add to that is it takes us back to the first episode of the webinar series, and that's really understanding your audience.
Yeah.
And when you understand your audience on a really granular level, then you know what questions they've got. So just thinking about strategy, like mapping out what questions your customers are asking and what knowledge they want to absorb. And then figure out what role you play in that customer's life. And out of that should come a content plan that you can then pull pieces of inspiration out of to then create your copy. Yeah, good. Hopefully that helps, Joanne.
And then I'm just going to pull up here. Hopefully this all works as it should. It's because I'm not playing that presentation. So here's quite a fun example of marketing fails.
Is that
how not to write?
yeah, it's opened. Yeah, all good.
And I saw this yesterday and I thought it was quite good. Some of them are quite funny. So this one probably doesn't make sense. It's more American. But just things like this is what I mean, that when like humor can go really wrong. So just think about, like, see, alienate in your audience. That's such a big thing. Like, and I guess it goes back to, you know, do we speak to everyone or do we just speak to our niche? It's just weighing up those things. Like, do you want to alienate other people? It depends, like, who you're, again, it's like Lee said, understanding your audience to a very deep level so that you know that when you're pulling off these things, it works, because this obviously doesn't. And, you know, this is when it can go terribly wrong. When you're trying too hard to be clever, like, I think, like, it's never too late to start over. If you aren't happy with it, do something better today. Don't stay stuck, do better. You know, like, it's just trying too hard to be funny, and it just doesn't work. So I can send this link. Some of them are quite funny, and some of them are just like, come a little closer on a tube line. Like, that's just really bad marketing. You know, like, I don't know who came up with that. Obviously not great. So just think, that's another point actually, just think about where your marketing is going to go. You know, because maybe this makes sense in a magazine, but it definitely does not make sense where it is there. Just thinking about things like that. So I can post that. All me, that's something that I try and drive home quite a lot. Like, we're digital artisans, an expert team passionate about crafting bespoke websites and apps. Get to know us. Well, that's great, but what are you going to do for me, and what about me?
I think, Lauren, we come up against this all the time. Whenever we do website audits, this is in the top 10 friction points that we come across. That and I guess business owners kind of getting in their own way and not looking at the copy from their perspective rather than their customer's perspective.
Yeah. And it's kind of like what that says there, like, get to is lame. It is quite lame. Like, I want to know what you're going to do for me, as opposed to getting to know you, which sounds brutal, but that is the way that the user thinks.
Yeah.
And when puns go wrong, like, again, like, this is just really not good. So some of them, like, I'll send that over. Like, it's just things to watch. Think about where these things are going to get posted and who's reading them and who your audience is, and just staying accessible for everyone. So good to know for emails, like, the top one is the big one. Spend double the amount of time crafting the right subject line, because the body will not matter. The body of the email won't matter if nobody clicks. So I get a lot of emails, and they just, like, from, like, obviously brands that I've maybe bought something from and inadvertently signed up to their email list. And sometimes I just delete them before I even open them, because I can tell from the subject line, like, I don't care about this, like, I don't want to read this. But if you just make it a bit more quirky or relevant to something, like if you're following up, people are more likely to open, especially if you're cold emailing, which is never great anyway, but it does happen in the world of marketing. Like, that is sometimes something that we need to do. So just like, again, it's about being authentic and like, what is the person actually going to be seeing in this email, like being honest and almost like giving them a preview of what they're going to see. Use the Oxford comma. That's a debate that writers will have. So the Oxford comma is basically, you do a list. So if it's like, today I bought oranges, apples and pears. So oranges, apple. After the apples, before the and, you would put another comma. And just because sometimes when you're doing lists, like, it just makes sense to do that. I'm going to try and see if I can find out one of these. Quite funny things that you sometimes see with this. Yeah, so I'll drag this over. Now, obviously, like, people would know what you're meaning, but this is just quite funny. So it's amazing how, like, a comma can change if you save a person's life. But this is kind of what I was trying to say. Like, I had eggs and toast and orange juice with the comma, so okay, you had 3 things. Whereas if it's not got the comma, it becomes a bit strange. Now, obviously, that's just more of like tongue in cheek, but it can sometimes make a difference, especially if something if you were given a list of restaurants, for example, and some restaurants have ands in them, like Miller and Carter. So it's almost helping break these things up, and it's just making things a bit more concise. Again, I keep saying that word, but keep it concise and focus on the matter at hand. Then end it with a call to action, whether it's a requested response date, and make it clear you're open to questions and follow-ups. A lot of people miss that. Like, they'll say, like, here's this thing you requested, thanks, Lauren, as opposed to like, let me know if you want to chat about this. Like, you know, always put a call to action in there. Try and add a question or a follow-up phrase as well. And try and, like, some people say, how formal should I be in emails? And again, that's about knowing your audience or knowing who you're speaking to. There's a perfect balance between formal and casual, and the key is thinking about your relationship with this recipient. I think we're probably past, I mean, again, it depends who your audience is, so I probably shouldn't say this, but for me personally, like, I probably wouldn't end emails with like, yours sincerely and stuff like that, but again, maybe your audience warrants that kind of formality. But I think, like, just keeping it conversational, keeping it human, like, authenticity always wins. It is an email at the end of the day. It's not like a letter. Sorry, Lee.
No worries. On that point, I think this is a hot topic for us because email marketing, we're seeing upward trends and things like open rates and stuff just now. But a question and the reason for that is because it is one-to-one conversation if done properly. But a question we often get asked is, what happens if I increase the frequency of my emails? Will we get more unsubscribes? And like, is it just something I shouldn't do? But actually, increasing the frequency of your emails can be a really good way to increase your sales. And but it needs to be led by this sort of stuff. So it needs to be led, am I doubling the frequency of my emails and providing more, double the value to my customers, or am I just doubling the frequency of emails for the sake of it? And if it's the latter, then your unsubscribes are going to go up and your open rates will probably go down. So it's using your customer understanding and knowledge to drive that increase.
Yeah, I guess it all goes back to quality over quantity again.
Yeah.
And knowing your audience. So my last slide was just live review. So I was just wondering if anyone had anything they would like to pull up and we can talk through it, or
anyone brave enough to let us loose?
I'll just stop sharing just now, just so I can pull up the.
No worries. Anyone got any examples of copy, social media, websites that they would like us to do a review on, or even any other questions? That would be good. Don't know if anyone's got any examples. Cool.
Okay. In that case, I'll pull up just quickly Innocent's drinks, since I spoke about them so much, so that you can see a good example of social media and stuff like that. So if I share that, can you see that there?
Yep.
Cool. So this is like Innocent, like, So they've been doing this every day since like the lockdown started. Just silly things like that, you know. It's not really about the brand, but it's just like just good humour done well. You'll see like written on their bottles and their cans and stuff. Like their copywriters are great, like at implementing humour in just a fun way. So you know, like it's not like they're not trying to say like, oh, buy an innocent drink at the end of every single one of these posts. But this kind of interaction, I mean, you can see by their followers, like that's a big follower count, and they have pretty good engagement on it as well. Because people are following them because they're quite fun to follow. They're not trying to do the hard sell all the time. But as soon as I go into a supermarket, I'm always looking to see if their drinks are on offer and stuff. And it probably is just me getting caught in the in amongst their good branding. But you should check them out. Like they're good fun. They do some cool stuff. Like obviously every year they do this. Like everyone can knit a hat for their bottles, and they go on sale. And you know, there's just some cool like little initiatives that they put together. And I really would say, like, when it comes to like copywriting and writing, like they're a good one to check out. And just branding generally, I just think they're great.
I think, and what it really goes back to, and a lot, it's this understanding of how important it is to get your brand right, to get your tone of voice right, and to spend time really understanding who you are as a brand, what you stand for, what language you use. And like, so whenever, and it's possible for businesses of all sizes to do that. It doesn't have to be this huge cost. It just requires an investment of time and thought. But like, we very rarely will take on a social media client without first making sure that we've got brand guidelines and customer personas in place for them. Because without that, you're kind of just, you're scattergunning, you're stabbing in the dark. And what tends to happen is you try certain tones or certain campaigns, and like you've said, Lauren, if it doesn't have full authenticity or align with you, customers just see straight through it, and it'll get shut down or it'll get ignored.
I think that is the key. Like it really is just about like knowing your audience is at the core of all marketing. Like, and these people, these big brands do not put out anything that they feel is going to hit the wrong way. Like Nike's a big one for that. They almost get a bit political at times, but they know their audience are going to receive that well. So things like the Colin Kaepernick thing that they did, I don't know if you remember that. He's a footballer and was kind of discriminated against. And obviously the footballers in America at the time weren't standing for the national anthem and stuff, and Nike supported that openly and did like a big campaign about it. And of course they knew their audience, you know, they knew they would get away with that, although they got a lot of backlash, but not from the people that were buying their product. And they do it a lot, like the Let Me Play campaign in the 90s, where they like were trying to open up sports to females and stuff. Like they've always like, they just know their audience so well. They're very clever with their branding that way.
Lauren, we've got a piece of copy. Joanne, is it okay for me to post that publicly for people to see? Yeah, cool. So I'm just going to post this piece of copy.
Cool.
And then, so this is a piece of copy from Joanne's website.
Right.
In the chat box, maybe you could just have a wee look over that. So it's the intro to the website. Cool.
So where was this? Okay, so right away, like, please don't take offence, like I'm only like going through this as I would like if I was doing an audit. It's starting again, like we started in by Ian Stewart, graduate in history. So it's instantly, it's about you, it's not about the customer. So that could maybe be better when we think about that inverted triangle. That would maybe be better as a good to know, like, or a nice to know at the bottom, but not something that's like going to help your call to action. This is fine because it's about you, but maybe that needs to be above this part. There's quite a lot of adjectives going on in here. So like unique, crafty, knowledgeable, locally, and adverbs, I guess, as well. So maybe it just needs to be like your itinerary is uniquely crafted by our knowledgeable team, as opposed to it being like quite a big sentence. Yeah, so it's, you know your audience, I'm sure more than I do. it's definitely telling a story, but again, it's quite heavy on the whole adjectives before it gets to the kind of point. Adjectives are fine, but just don't overdo them. And going back to our like primary sort of language set, obviously this kind of thing here might be better. I don't actually know what that means, so admittedly.
Is that the ethnographic?
Yeah. Sorry, I am highlighting. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen now. Sorry, I am highlighting this, and I'm not even. I'm like scrolling down, like thinking that I'm still sharing my screen. Sorry. So I should probably go back then. So the first sort of paragraph I was talking about there maybe like gets reversed to the one underneath it. So your unique itinerary. And you can see like yourself, like in that a private ethnographic paragraph, like it's quite long. It probably could get broken up a little bit. Using things like block caps for like go where you want, it almost cheapens the brand a bit when you put block capitals in that and like that. So probably take that out. You can always put it in bold, maybe could work better as opposed to putting it in all caps. And again, just maybe a bit long. Sorry, I'm just reading. But generally okay, I think it just needs restructured, probably simplified a bit, and the hierarchy of it just needs tweaked a little bit. That's at a glance what I would say to that, without being too offensive. I think there was another like thing in there, like Neil had said like good example of concise and clear and effective. I actually have, although this is going to be quite small, but if I can just share my screen quickly, I'm conscious of time as well.
Right.
So this is a website I worked on in my last role. So this is what, I realise this is quite small, but this is like a presentation that we've done. This is what this site used to look like. Now, it doesn't really matter what it says, but you can see right away the imagery is pretty, I mean, this is meant to be a luxury website, a luxury hotel. There's very little in the way of visuals. The content is just overwhelming. There's a lot of content on there. So as part of that team, we put together its new website, which sadly is not quite finished because of the pandemic. But you can see here, like we've just kept it a lot more concise. It's got nice visuals in there. The masthead isn't cluttered. It just takes you nice. There's a nice story to it. Like their big thing focuses meetings and events, so that's why that's at the top of the page. Weddings, and you can just see like it's just a much more easy site to read, as opposed to when we go back to this is what it was and this is what it's became. Even like the colours, and it's just, there's more of a brand feel there now. We can kind of tell that there is a brand here. This almost looks like a white paper, like how it was before. And there's like a comparison side by side. And you can just see that we've like really focused in on those visuals, because luxury brands do depend a lot on visuals, because don't tell me it's luxury, like show me. And that's what we obviously try to do with that. I can send some other like good website examples that I'm not biased for in the follow-up email. Just like, this is just the reason I've pulled this one up is because I have an example of before and after of how a website can sometimes look to how the potential it actually does have. It was the same with like Hilton Sydney, like theirs was black, like it was horrible, like they had like 25 pages and we cut it down to about 6. So just in another like side-by-side comparison of how that works as well. And really just making your call to actions prominent, that's such a big one. Like where was the call to actions here and here? Like they're just not clear, whereas you can see the buttons are pretty prominent there.
Awesome.
Cool.
Amazing. Just very quickly, Jessica, I seen you raise your hand. I don't know if that was intentional, but if you've got a question, just feel free to unmute or post it in the comments. Yeah, and then I think that's us. Loads of value there. Thanks, Lauren. I'm sure that'll really help people. If there's any other final questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Otherwise, that's no worries, Jessica. I think that was just a mistake raising your hand. Cool. Amazing. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We have our next webinar session, which is Tuesday next week, and that is tutorial on Facebook ads. And then next Thursday, we are running through the power of storytelling using visual, so using photography and videography. So hopefully you guys can join us, and we'll send a follow-up email on the back of this to all attendees and registrations. And yeah, have an awesome day. Thanks for joining us.